you're probably wondering what that was all about. So if I ever have to remind myself that I'm working in a very exciting part of the industry, I found this video about a month ago, and it's actually the Chanel Pret-a-Porter 2017 collection, and they decided to do it in a data center. So if you ever wanted to wonder if cloud is in the zeitgeist at the moment, it is. And like, you're probably not the only people that go, okay, that's weird, because Karl Lagerfeld was asked, like, why did you have a data center as your catwalk? And what he said was, technology is the future. He said, imagine your life without the telephone, and the next step will be artificial intelligence and robots. So high fashion data centers, I think you're going to hear an awful lot more of the cloud as time goes on. So as you know, I'm Damian Lawlor. I'm 9 years in Google, 1 year in Google Cloud. I joined at the start of the year. I actually ran the DoubleClick ad tech and programmatic advertising business in Europe for 6 years before that, and then the publisher business 2 years before that. And I'm here to really talk you through why we in Google Cloud see marketing and marketing technology as being so important. So I remember back in my DoubleClick days, we talked about the right ad to the right person at the right time on the right device, and the wonders of what technology was going to bring, the promise of technology, really the ability to be able to talk to your customer, to develop that two-way relationship with your customer at the right micro moment. So you can ask yourself, how far have we got along that path to actually be able to do that with technology? But what is definitely happening is we have more and more data about our customers that we can actually look at, and that data is exploding. Like Laura talked about 75 billion connected devices in the next 5 years, which is true. We're going to have a huge corpus of data that we can use to make more sense of our relationship with our customers, or your relationship with your customers' customers. And the question is, how are you using this data? It's just getting bigger and bigger. It's not getting easier, this question. So this really is at the heart of what attracted Google Cloud's attention to this area. The first is that CMOs, CEOs, in fact, the entire C-suite are talking about big data and have been for quite a while. That's clear. Second is, I loved this Gartner quote. It's quite old at this stage, but they said the CMO will spend more on IT than the CIO. That's actually a trend we are seeing. We are seeing more and more tech discussions happening with the CMO and the CEO rather than in conjunction really with the CTO. So whereas Google Cloud came out of a business model where we sold to the CTO alone, now we're realizing, in fact, this is all about how can you use technology to impact use cases, solutions, and your business outcomes. And this is summed up really well by the Harvard Business Review. And in fact, there was an even more recent study by MIT that clearly states that people who integrate multiple sources of customer marketing data significantly outperform other competitors. And that's across revenue, it's across profits, it's across shareholder value, it's across across share price. So if it is that straightforward, if integrating customer and marketing data successfully and driving insight and driving actionability and getting a better view of the customer drives out performance, why isn't everybody doing it? So when I started in cloud, I started off by actually just doing a tour of a lot of different customers and prospects and asking people how far were they along in their data strategy. I had lunch with this man, a very senior executive within a very large top 10 global bank, and I asked him, how much of your customer data do you use in your advertising? And he said, none, I can't link the data sets. That was pretty amazing until I started going and talking to some of the companies all across the world, but some here in the Bay Area, which you would recognize as being leaders in the use of data to do customer recommendations, content recommendations. And they said they significantly struggle with using data to figure out like insights and actionability as well. So this was a common theme. This was not just one individual person that said this. Also, I have to admit that coming out of like ad tech, I thought the ad tech universe was pretty big. It was really interesting to then see how big MarTech is, 3,500, as Laura said, maybe 4,000 different solutions here. All of this creating really amazing solutions for customers, for CMOs, for companies, but all creating data that ultimately needs to be integrated if we want to get this outperformance. But also very interesting from a Google Cloud perspective, because all of these companies are going to be making decisions about building on-prem or building in the cloud, or building in hybrid solutions. And I think we have something significant to offer anyone in the MarTech space, because we are effectively externalizing the Google Cloud, which has been built for 18 years and optimized for marketing and marketing use cases. So we know a lot about this industry, and now we're externalizing it for others to use and gain benefit from. So again, I like this slide a lot because I know a number of you I met last night have flown in from New York, so anytime you get a group of people from outside California and you show them a slide that has an earthquake crack in it, usually catches their attention. But effectively all this is saying is the same that some of the other speakers have said as well, is you need to combine not just your marketing data, but also with your other sources of enterprise data. Again, very interesting at a marketing conference, there was a panel, there was an ad hoc question asked to the panel where they said, how many marketing solutions do you use in your organization? And I was very surprised because the first gentleman said 63. And the lowest number across the 4 people that were asked was actually 38. So on the left-hand side, you're talking about integrating a huge number of very, often very, very good and very powerful and very valuable solutions with your point of sale, your CRM data, the growing amount of second-party data deals you can do, and then of course third-party data, to be able to pull that together so you can get a holistic view of your customer. And let's face it, all of the slides we see show all these data silos and how we connect them. Silos are for farmers. How can we get people out of the farming business and into the data science business and into really understanding where their customers are? So this is where I think we go back to Google's mission. I was a consultant briefly in a career long ago. I remember vision statements were those things you wrote for companies. They put them in plastic maps. They put them in their shelves. Dust fell on them. They were never looked at again. This, in fact, is something we use every day to determine investment decisions across all initiatives. And when you look at this mission, like organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, we did think using data to drive marketing and business outcomes is a challenge we think we can help companies address. And if you think of where our infrastructure that we're now externalizing has come from, we have, up until very recently, we had 7 user platforms that had more than 1 billion monthly active users active on them, and some of them have grown explosively fast, which forced us to build our infrastructure in a particular way. In fact, we now have 8 platforms that have more than 1 billion active users on them. The 8th one is actually Google Cloud Platform, the difference being that they're not our customers, they're our customers' customers that are sitting on Google Cloud Platform. But a couple of interesting stories about this, about the scale problems we've had to deal with over the years. One of my favorite stories internally is Google Earth, where because of the way we've built it, as a developer, you don't need to commission equipment, understand your network needs, any of that. It's all a no-ops environment. You just build and put your code into production. But somebody asked the engineers, look, for good practice, tell us how many people are going to visit the site in this first weekend. And they said, well, okay, it's going to be this amount. And anyone who's done this type of planning knows that you're wrong, and you're hoping you're going to be wrong, that you've commissioned too much rather than too little. And guess what? They were wrong. Does anyone want to guess by what factor they were wrong on that first weekend? It's like an auction, so 100x. I have 100x on the right-hand side. Anybody else? Hint, hint. 200x. 1000x. Okay, correct answer has been given, right? So who would have guessed that looking into your neighbor's back garden was so interesting, all right? But in fact, what it taught us was something very different, and that is that we don't often or usually understand the uses that our technology can be used for to drive business outcomes for our customers. Because of course, and it sounds stupid, but in hindsight, think of all the realtors and the real estate agents around the world that instantly plugged into that as a method of being able to better sell houses that we just didn't see as an opportunity. So one of the things that we're calling out to people as they look at our technology is, it's really the use cases and the solutions are going to be done in partnership with you. You're going to bring the use cases, and then we're going to bring this technology we've built over 18 years that we think is really going to unleash a lot of power. One of the very quick question, example with the client Niantic, Pokemon Go, you may have heard of it. Actually, human beings have walked between here and Pluto, apparently, as the amount of kilometers people have walked playing that game. They were also asked to guess in the first launches what capacity they would need. Again, they didn't need to do this, but we thought good practice. They guessed, okay, it'll be 1x, maximum 5x. They hit 5x within, I think it was 90 seconds. And they were bigger than Twitter within 3 weeks. You've got to build an infrastructure that is capable of Like when you do something that blows the doors off, that you can actually just scale and be able to cope with that, and then you have the infrastructure and the people behind it that can do that. So this is what we're looking to do. Our vision is to how can we help with the fundamental infrastructure for marketing and MarTech, pulling relevant data together, and then like really focused on driving relevant business outcomes like the 360-degree view of the customer. We see this trend that Brian talked about our ad tech and MarTech coming together. Obviously, we have a lot of ad tech and MarTech experience built up over the years with our Google Suite, DoubleClick Suite, and now we're looking at how can we like bring that infrastructure as a separate business. Let me say at this stage that Google Cloud is a separate business unit since the start of this year. We brought Diane Green from the Google board to come run it, and we're making huge investments. So these are not necessarily interrelated products and solutions that you need to take from us, but the offer is there. People can look at our SaaS solutions, they can look at our media solutions, and they can look at our infrastructure and our cloud solutions. And I think it's the interplay of those that actually adds a lot of value for a lot of our partners at this stage. Quick story about, this is my favorite customer of the moment, but I'm consistently looking for others who can become favorite customers. And there was an existential crisis moment for this customer where Netflix, they're the largest ISP and cable television company in Africa. As Netflix came into each of their countries, their subscribers fell off a cliff. The lady CMO went to her CEO and said, can we build a data lake and start doing some analytics around this? And his reaction was interesting. He said, it'll take too long, it'll cost a lot of money, and it won't succeed. I'll tell the short version of this story. It took 5 months to do. She had an initial proof of concept in 6 weeks. She pulled together 27 data sources. She was able to identify predictively, very accurately, through lookalike analysis, who are the people that were likely to leave. Found out that the key ratio was the number of channels watched versus the number of channels paid for. And then they were able to turn that into action by offering their sales force the ability to call people before their renewal came up and offer them new channel packages, which completely stopped attrition. Then they built loyalty schemes. Then they actually repositioned themselves as something you consume alongside Netflix instead of as a competitor. And now they're even using machine learning on that corpus of data to fairly accurately predict, as people call into call centers, what is it that they're calling in about. We have plenty of other examples as well. To give you a concept of some of the power of this, Lloyd's Banking Group, what was taking them 96 hours, they can now do in 30 minutes on BigQuery. Spotify went from doing 500 queries a month to 100,000 queries a month because just the speed changes people's behaviors. You democratize data science. You can now have people play with creativity and try different ways of working out the data. Interesting story on Spotify. So a very large female artist decided to pull her song collection off Spotify. The CEO went to the data science group and said, what does that mean for our business? That's an English language question. Any of you who are familiar with data science knows that freaks data scientists out. Like, how do I turn that into SQL? But because they were able to return queries between 8 and 25 seconds, and remember, they've got 1 billion events a day. This is a massive amount of data they're querying. But because of that speed, they took that English language question and were just able to try out, just constantly try new ways of interrogating the data. And what that meant was they were able to, within a number of hours, come back and say, actually, people's behaviors are changing, and then recommend ways of doing different song recommendations to keep people on the platform. There's also people in AdTech and MarTech that are already on our platform, actually very many of them, but I just want to call out two. Bruce from Turn, who's in the audience, exploring ways to use Google's capacity for burst compute tasks and big analytics queries. And Mark Rabe from Sojourn, they're using Google across the board, again with analytics, but also a lot of the infrastructure pieces. And in fact, they're a bigger user of Google. They use the full DoubleClick suite, and they also use video Hangouts, GChat, etc. So they've learned ways to add value across the suite. Infectious media, worthwhile talking to about as well. We've managed, they have actually built their APAC solution within a week on us, and they're heading towards being a million QPS programmatic buying solution globally. Machine learning is what I'll finish up on. This is a huge, huge area that we think is going to be a differentiator for us. We've made major investments in this area. The graph on the left just shows you the number of different machine learning libraries. I think the interesting thing to spot in it is that we only really started using deep learning in Google in about 2014, and now we use it for everything. Relevant to this group, like we have two different types of machine learning we offer. We have APIs that we've trained ourselves across vision, across text, across translate. Even more interesting is Tensorflow, which we've made completely open source. In fact, so open source that the leading use of Tensorflow at the moment is actually on a rival cloud platform. But we believe as we build out very, very specific technologies to take advantage of machine learning, that will come back and that will grow on us. That's what we believe. We want to win people's business every day, not just lock them in. Quick story on TensorFlow. That's actually on YouTube if you want to look at it. So Criteo put out an open data set as a data science challenge and said, how fast can you build a trained model that comes close to our predictive marketing, our click predictive model? Jeff Dean, who is our lead data scientist, took 2 data scientists and TensorFlow and trained a model within 2 weeks that came within 0.3% of that predictive model, which just shows you the power you can have once you get all your data together, and then you can start making it sensible to human beings and then making it sensible to machines. I think that's what the future is all going to look about. Very last request is going back to that idea around Google Earth. You will actually tell us best how our technology can be used. So, and anyone who has actually engaged with us, has done a proof of concept, and has actually gone deep with us on use cases, has been pretty impressed at what we've already externalized and what our roadmap for the future is with Google Cloud. So please just engage. This is an area we know extremely well, marketing and MarTech use cases, and we're really keen on just learning with you about how we can really change and maybe bring that promise of technology that we all have been talking about for the last 6, 8, 10 years to reality over the coming years. Thank you very much.